In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to crochet the feather stitch. Really lovely texture to the fabric. It's a nice dense fabric, would be very good for pot holders or trivets, and equally it's very chilly. You might want to have a lovely thick scarf. So let's have a look at the tutorial. So for this tutorial I'm going to be using a Starcraft Aran, and I'm going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. You can use whichever yarn you want and corresponding hook, and I have scissors to cut off my end when I have finished. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot. You can do this in whichever way you prefer. And we need to make a foundation chain. Now the foundation chain needs to be made in even numbers. So I'm going to do a chain of 20, so yarn over, pull through my slip knot. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as I say, I'm going up to 20 for this sample. So pause the video now and make your foundation chain, and as long as you would like it to be in multiples of 2, so even numbers, and I'll see you in a moment. So I have my foundation chain of 20 chains, and we're going to start work in the second chain from the hook. So we never count the one on the hook. So there's chain 1 and there's chain 2. So we're starting in the second chain. And in that chain we're going to do a half treble. That's UK terminology. In US terminology that's a half double. So you yarn over, insert into the second chain, yarn over, pull a loop up. You should have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. Then we're going to work in the next chain, and we're going to do a half treble in that chain. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. And we're going to do a half treble in every stitch, every chain, all the way down the row right to the end. So pause the video now whilst you put a half treble or a half double in US into each of your chains, and I will see you in a moment. So I'm just coming up to the end of my first row, and I'm going to do my half treble in that very last stitch, and that is row 1 complete. For row 2 then I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work, and we're going to be working in that very first chain space there, so the chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, and again we're going to put a half treble into that very first stitch. Now the difference on this row is we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next stitch and then do a half treble in the next one. So skip that stitch and make a half treble in the next stitch. And that's going to leave us our 1 chain space for the next part of the pattern. Chain 1, skip a stitch, treble in the next one. Sorry, half treble in the next one. Chain 1, skip a stitch, half treble. Chain 1, skip a stitch, half treble. So work your way down the line and I will see you in a moment. So pause the video now. So I'm just coming up to the end of my row and chaining 1, and I'm going to do my last treble. Now be careful because it looks like it's going around the corner a bit, but that's the last one we need to work into there, that V stitch there. So I'm going to work my last treble into that last stitch, sorry, last half treble into that stitch, and that is the second row done. Now for row 3 we're going to be working into these chain spaces here and into the chains underneath, the spaces underneath. So let's have a look at how we do that. Now row 3 starts off with a chain 1 and we turn our work, and again we do a half treble in that very first stitch. So this is the repeated row pattern, so row 3 you're going to repeat all the way through. So we've done a half treble, so we're going to start off our little cluster of stitches, and the first one is going into that first space here. So I'm going to yarn over, insert into that space, yarn over and pull up a loop so it's the same height as the other loops on your hook. We're then going to work into the chain space from the previous row, which is right underneath that space. So yarn over, insert into that chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop, again pull it up so it's the same height, and then we're going to work into the next chain space. So yarn over, insert into that next chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop, again to the same height. You should have 7 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yarn over and pull through all 7. Then chain 1 to finish off that cluster. Now the next stitch is exactly the same stitch, but we started in the last chain space that we worked into. So you can see that we've worked into that space. So we're going to work into it again. Don't go on to the next one. Work into the same one you've just worked into. So yarn over, insert into that space, yarn over, pull up a loop to the same height. Then we're going into the space below. So yarn over into that space below, yarn over and pull up a loop, again to the same height. Then we're going to move over to the next chain space, yarn over, insert into that chain space, yarn over, pull through. Make sure it's the same height. You should have 7 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yarn over and pull through all 7 loops and chain 1 to close it off. So I'll just do that one last time because we're going to repeat this all the way down the row. So working into the last chain space that you've already worked into, yarn over, insert into the space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and we're working into the space below now, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop to the same height, then working across to the next chain space, yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop. Should have 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops and chain 1 to close off your cluster. So work down to the end of the row, and just before you get to the last stitch I shall show you what to do. So pause the video now and I'll see you at the end of the row. So I've done my final feather stitch, and what I need to do now is to work a half treble into that final stitch, and that completes the row. So you start with the half treble and you finish with the half treble. Now don't worry if this looks a little bit gappy here, because we're going to fill that in with the feather stitches of the next row. So to do the next row then, we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn our work, and we're going to work a half treble in that very first stitch and chain 1. We're now going to work our cluster of stitches. So we yarn over, working into that first space, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, making sure it's the right height. Now we don't have any chain spaces, but we do have these gaps underneath, and we're going to be working into these spaces now on that row. So we're going to yarn over, insert into that chain space, yarn over and pull back up, and then we're going to work into the next space, which is here. So yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull that up, and I've managed to gain a hair. So I should have 7 loops on my hook, 2, 4, 6, 7, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops and chain 1. And as we did before, we're going to start the next cluster in the last 1 chain space that we've just worked into. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. working in the gap below that one, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop. Then in the next gap, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 7 loops and chain 1. So I'll do it again for you. So yarn over, insert into the last worked chain 1 space, yarn over and pull up. Then we're working into the space below that one, so yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then in the next one, chain space, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up, 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 7 and chain 1. And you can see there that it's starting to add more of a feathery effect to it. So I'm going to work up a few more rows so you can really see the feather effect, and I will see you in a moment. So I just worked up a few more rows there for you to see how it looks, and you can really see the sort of feathery effect. It's almost like a braid going up in stripes. So really lovely. Obviously, because it's a 1 row repeated pattern, it's the same on the front as it is on the back. Lovely thick texture to it, and I haven't finished this off because I've just decided I'm going to make this into a nice scarf. And what I'm going to do at the end is do a row of half trebles in each of the stitches in my final row, just to really round that off. I might even put some tassels on the end. A really lovely stitch, definitely one to have a go at. Once you get the hang of which spaces you need to work into, it's really super easy and it works out really quickly, although it is a stash buster, so make sure you've got plenty of yarn for making your project. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video on how to do the feather stitch in crochet. I will pop 2 videos on the side of the screen to help you on your crochet journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up because it does help the YouTube algorithm to do its business and to show it to other crocheters. And I will see you in one of the videos over here. Thank you so much for joining me on this one, and happy hooking!